I am, by my own admission, not a very good dancer. I tried when I was 5 or 6, and then a little bit later when I was in 7th grade, in church plays, in ballet classes, but I'm not very good at choreographed dance. And the reason is because I'm always out of step with everyone else. I'm a free-form person. I'm perfect at dancing if I can just do it myself, but when I have to actually be in step with people, I fail miserably. This is actually unlike some senators in their alignment with public opinion as regards gun control. My question today is, are Cruz, Paul, and Lee out of step with the public on gun control? No. Senators Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Mike Lee, respectively, of Texas, Kentucky, and Utah, are not out of step with the public on gun control, unlike me in my ballet lessons. And we'll be seeing this through 3 points. First, the conservative position, although they might self-identify as libertarian, that these senators have taken on gun control. Second, how polls, public opinion, is leaning conservative on gun control. And third, how it's really left to definitions to determine whether or not they're out of step. But first, let's look at the conservative position that these 3 senators have taken on gun control. According to the Wall Street Journal on March 31st, Senators Cruz, Paul, and Lee said that they planned to filibuster any bill that served to, quote, as a vehicle for any additional gun restrictions, end quote. There's a bill currently in the Senate that has to do with gun control. It's unclear exactly what's going to be passed, what's going to be amended. The point of it is some kind of gun control, though, and these senators have said we are going to filibuster, which means to make a lot of long speeches to delay the bill from being passed in order to stop this, in order to stop any gun restrictions from happening. And the reason that they're doing this is they're resisting a reaction to a shooting that happened a couple of months ago. According to The Guardian on April 1st, yes, that's April Fool's Day, but no, this is not an April Fool's article, the senators are saying that the reaction to the Sandy Hook shooting in Connecticut at a public school where 20 kids were killed and as well as 6 teachers it was horrible, but the senators are saying the reaction is not to immediately pass strict gun control. That's their position. That's a position that actually has been taken by other members of the Republican Party known as conservatives. According to the Washington Post on March 28th, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida has actually joined Cruz, Paul, and Lee in their promise to filibuster any bill that will or any gun control bill. So this is something that's picking up support. And Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, looked at as a moderate senator, has said that under certain conditions he would also throw support behind a filibuster. So this is something that is within the Republican Party, a conservative position taken by these senators. It's also something that polls are seeming to support, recent polls. It's a general trend. According to the same Washington Post article, March 28th, that I just quoted, quote, popular support for reform has fallen in the polls since the shooting, end quote. And this makes sense if you think about it. Right after a shooting in an elementary school where 20 first graders were killed, there's going to be a lot of support. Congress, we need to do something. But since then, it would appear that the public has drawn back a little bit from that support. And let's look at the actual numbers. There was a March 26th poll conducted by CBS to get the latest public opinion on this issue. It was quoted in the Wall Street Journal article I quoted earlier, and it says that the numbers are currently 47% as of that March 26th poll that now support more strict gun laws. And yes, that is very vague. I think it was intentionally vague. It's intended to get a barometer of public opinion. Do you support more strict, same, or less strict? So 47% support more strict, as opposed to 59% in December, right after the shooting in another CBS poll. So clearly, more than 10 percentage points, 12 percentage points, the public opinion has dropped. And this is actually not the case for background checks, which is very interesting. The restrictions that the public supports are on guns specifically, but not on background checks, which is essentially the gun place looks into who you are to make sure you're not mentally ill or a former felon or something when you're buying a gun. And 9 out of 10 Americans support stricter background checks. And this is differentiated from something like a ban on magazines or a ban on certain kinds of guns even that has actually been proposed. And that's not something that the public supports. The public does not support any kind of bans on guns, any kind of gun restrictions. Remember, that's what Senators Paul and Lee and Cruz were saying saying that they did not support, and that's why it's left to the definitions here. What did they mean when they said gun restrictions? Well, we know that the public doesn't support President Obama's gun restrictions. This is seen from a Fox News article on February 12th. President Obama and Vice President Biden have proposed outright gun bans on certain kinds of high-capacity magazines, which means they're able to fire lots of rounds a minute. Looks really cool on television, but would be deadly in real life. And other certain kinds of guns. That's something that President Obama supposed. Even Democrats don't support that policy. Most of the public does not support that policy. So if we're using that definition of gun restrictions, restrictions on actual guns, the public most certainly does not support that. We've seen that they do support background checks, but let's look to what the senators themselves actually meant when they said gun restrictions. In a Bloomberg article on March 28th, Senator Mike Lee was elaborating, well, what did we mean when we said we would filibuster gun restrictions? He said the public should not, the law-abiding citizens, should not be forced to give up their guns or to give up their rights to their guns because of a misguided policy. He was not talking about background checks when he was elaborating on his statement on the senator's statement about the filibuster. He was saying gun rights. He was using language of the Second Amendment. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what the senators were talking about. So we can see that Senator Paul, Senator Cruz, and Senator Lee are not out of step with the American public when they're proposing this. Unlike me, I've been very out of step in ballet before. Thankfully, I do somewhat better in soccer, but they're clearly not as bad as I was when I was 5 or 6 or even in 7th grade. They're not out of step. They're not. They're in line with public opinion on not enacting more gun control. Thank you. And I won't shake your hands because I'm sick, but thank you all for judging. Thank you for timing, Julia.